Hello. I am still alive. Honestly, I have no energy whatsoever. Like, I would like to communicate, and I do have some thoughts that I want to share. But I'm so tired. Basically, I think, if I'm correct, I posted a little bit more than a week ago, I guess. So last week, I had more appointments than I could handle, like, in a few months. And this is one of another moments of like facing your disability. And I do have like, it is a manifested life, it doesn't matter. 3D is just a response to whatever, it's not forever. But at the same time, it is really hard to face an inability to do something, especially something that's very easy or something that you actually really love doing. I love socializing, actually. I love talking to people. I love going places. In general, like, maybe I'm not a fan of appointments as in like hard commitments. I really don't like going to work or doing stuff every day at the same time. But I really love having something exciting and new and different to do every day and get to know people or, you know, give feedback. Love that. So I was doing that. I had to meet like 2 or 3 social workers. I don't remember, all from different organizations, and it was fun. Jesus, I have not sorted this out still. But what happened was I got so tired. Like, realistically, I can handle 1 appointment every 2 months. Realistically, like, more would be too much. Not once a month would be too much. And I had 4 or 5 appointments in a week. I was so tired that the entire time I was not at the appointment, I was sleeping. And that fucked up my back. So now my back hurts so much. And I'm having, I don't know. I don't want to say difficulty. I mean, it is a difficulty, but it's also like, what's the point of talking about it? But yeah, my back hurts. So like, I'm trying to make some drawings or make some stuff. And most of the stuff I make on the floor, and that hurts. So I'm trying to fit stuff on the table. I had to clean it. Now I only have this paper. That's going to be a stencil because I'm trying to make a series of posters. I mean, it's just the normal, nothing extra, just like my normal stuff. I had an idea and then became a series, but I have not started carving because I'm so freaking tired. Also, I, how you say it? I got over my regular food, so now I'm just hungry most of the times because, oh, and the bread I was eating was became out of the stock because apparently it was seasonal. I don't fucking know. So I'm hungry, hangry, and tired, and my back hurts. So it's fun times, but that also makes it so that I have more things to say. And I don't know, I was thinking, oh, should I put it in this video or make it a separate one? But I think I'll add it here because the beginning kind of makes it more poignant. People do really be avoiding accepting themselves as autistic. But that's not even what I wanted to say, actually. Like, I wanted to title this something like, what are the reasons of under-detected autism? I don't want to say underdiagnosed. We are not here about diagnosis. It's not even a freaking illness. Like, you don't diagnose gay. Diagnosing autism is really like gross and patronizing and just disgusting thing. but we understand that we need access to certain services and help sometimes where it is available. So we accept it as a situation for now. So I was thinking about why it happens so that people don't know they're autistic in very simple ways. I've met so many people. It's basically every people I meet, they're autistic. Some of them know, some of them don't. A lot of them are kind of on the fence. Maybe, I'm not sure. And I want to talk about the reasons for all of this. I just saw something about highly sensitive person. Actually, a person who identifies as highly sensitive person was upset about people talking about this actually being autism. And that kind of like inspired me to make this video. Because that is something that I've seen quite a few times. And there are reasons for this, and there are some consequences. I want to, of course, mention that this is not like a statistical research or nothing. I'm talking like personal experience, common sense, and like general trends, what happens, how, but again, speaking through example of my personal experience. But it's really important for me to clarify that I had to backtrack and kind of analyze my experience backwards after I found out that I was autistic. And that only happened through people on the internet talking about it, explaining it, talking about their personal experiences, talking about the issues, talking about everything that I'm going to mention. Even the personal experience as I had it, I did not know what it meant if it wasn't for people who were explicit and like open about their personal internal experiences and both experiences as well with other people and institutions and society, right? So nothing exists in a vacuum, and that's why I'm talking about this. And that's why you often can find me commenting under your video telling you you're autistic. Nothing personal. I just love you. So, first reason why people aren't identified as autistic. Generally. Very obvious reason, very simple reason to observe: lack of information. / incorrect or contradictory information. So, lack of information we understand, right? It's just somebody that is not having access to information. And again, I keep comparing this to being like gay or trans because to me that is kind of like more obvious experience. Maybe not with, well, if you're trans, to you it's going to be more obvious, right? For cis people, maybe it's gay example is easier to understand. So that's why I'm using the gay example, but I feel like it's both. So if you don't know gay people exist, you will never know that you're gay, right? And that also relates, if you don't know that it's okay to be gay, you wouldn't know that it's okay to be gay. You would not know who you are, but you would feel that something's wrong with you, right? Exact same logic applies to autism. We can talk about ADHD as well, but it's a little bit like add-on. I'm so disturbed by this, but it is what it is. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to myself. So, first of all, complete lack of information. I don't remember how old I was when I found out I was autistic. I think it was 32. And it was right about fucking time, because right after that, I completely broke down and fell into my burnout, and I'm still in it. So I'm glad I found out, but I feel like it would be really helpful if, you know, there was information available somewhere, somehow, in some way. And I also find that the infographics that say, oh, asocial or something like this, they're not really helpful because they're completely out of context. You don't understand what they're talking about. Really, mostly what helped me understand is just observing other people, how they behave, how they explain and translate their experience. That was perfect. That's why I am telling people they're autistic. That's why I'm saying I'm autistic, so people can understand what it means and what it doesn't mean. Because there are some people who would be like, you don't look autistic, you know? That's a different conversation. To me, autistic people look very specific or like very obvious. More obvious than gay, actually. And I'm realizing that a lot of people that I would previously be like, oh, they're probably queer. Now I'm like, oh, they're just autistic. And, well, that's a different conversation. It's not even a conversation, that would be like a rant or whatever. I don't know. I'm uncomfortable because my back hurts. Okay, I'm gonna power through this. So, lack of information or contradictory information. Lack of information we understand. Contradictory information is people confusing ADHD and ASD symptoms. Symptoms is very huge quotes. I'm not like traits, let's say traits. A lot of things get confused and people keep being diagnosed with, like, let's say ADHD and OCD, while they're just, how do you say ASDHD? I know how to write this, I don't know how to say it. Okay. Why they have both autism and ADHD. And of course there is an idea that they're kind of almost the same, yet we see that some people have both and some people have one and some people have the other. Though I have seen autistic people without ADHD, but I have not seen ADHD person without autism yet. So that is interesting. But in the descriptions, like, I see like a magazine, online magazine, and they're talking about stuff. And they're talking about highly sensitive person being a trait of ADHD. It isn't. It simply isn't. What is ADHD? Well, sorry, this is a video about ASD and suddenly I'm talking about ADHD. But that's important. ADHD is based off of lack of dopamine. So all the activities are geared towards compensating for that. We'll talk about it separately, like I literally will make a separate video. Autism, the entire thing of autism is high sensitivity. There's nothing else to it. And then there are different ways in which it expresses, about which we can also talk separately, because this is not about describing autism, but just about showing an example that this happens. People confuse ADHD and ASD because a lot of people who are diagnosed with ADHD, they don't know they're autistic. Or, for example, the video I just saw talking about highly sensitive person. I do not have this infographic. I haven't saved or screenshot it. But it was basically saying something like highly sensitive person, like Venn diagram, and autistic person. And they were overlapping like this. Yet, all three sections only had autistic traits. So it comes from like not at all understanding autistic experience. Oh, I'll use that word a bit later. Not understanding what autism is. So it does connect to a person who's trying to educate, they don't know what they're talking about. And I will get back to why that happens a bit lower here in my points, because I did I did create little list, but it's not very complete and not very, what's the word? There's a word for this. Like, whatever, not whole. So, first, oh my god, it took me 10 minutes to explain the first point. Bear with me. That's burnout for y'all. ADHD as well. So, second, social stigma. It could be split in three like points, you know, 3 different points. So general is ableism as a whole, because autism is perceived and is constructed as a disability. Hence, associating with it is not a goal of somebody who it seems to them that they have a choice to associate with it or not. And of course, like, yes, but you can associate with the word or not. But if you're autistic, you're autistic. And let's clear it out that, yeah, words are used to describe certain things. I'm not saying that identity as an autistic person is necessary. It can be important to feel the sense of community, to feel the sense of normalness, and to have tools and understanding of self, you know, like to improve your life. But we don't care what word is used, you know, like. But then I'm talking about why the word is important is because it's the non-using of the word make it seem so that either it's not there, the autism, or the thing that is there is something that isn't autism. So it's just splitting things. It's kind of like how capitalism and like the wealthy divide and conquer everything. So, you know, so all the poor people fight each other. This is a similar situation. So the bigger one is ableism, and then social stigma associated with autism on its own, because there is a certain idea of what autism is, right? That's why people have the guts to tell you you don't look autistic or like you don't behave autistic, because they have a very narrow and stereotypical idea of what autism is, and anything that doesn't fall under that image that they have, first of all, they want to invalidate as for the reason of their ignorance, and second of all, they anything that is associated with it then is gonna cause like a negative response. And we're talking about, right now I'm talking about mostly like the person themselves, like the autistic person themselves, but everything comes from society and from environment, right? We don't exist in isolation. So the ableism exists within you, and facing it, especially after years upon years upon years of exercising it against yourself, is a very painful experience. Could be a very painful experience, and something that people tend to want to avoid and run away from or postpone as long as possible. And like with any kind of negative experiences or like negative self-image, it makes sense, it's normal, and that happens, right? But that doesn't mean that it's healthy to hold on to it, right? We're not judging here anybody, just talking about why things are, how things are. And then third part of this, on even more intimately personal level, is or let's say it's almost like its own point, but it is intimately connected to the previous one. It's self-gaslighting. There's so many people who they're like, I think maybe I could be autistic, but I'm not sure. Or like, I thought I was autistic and then I didn't get a diagnosis, and now I think I'm not. Or somebody's like, I might be, but I'm gonna wait till a diagnosis. Well, first of all, we know that that's not first of all, but we know that it's pretty hard to get a diagnosis, exactly for the reasons of information not existing in the right scope. And people who diagnosing you, whether they're autistic or not, because they're referring to this weird ass I went on to starting this point from the beginning. So self-gaslighting comes from where? From being gaslit since birth. And even if not by persons, by the system. By the virtue of the system not being made for you, not being created for you as you are, you tend to doubt your internal experiences, your intuitions, your like this intimate knowledge. First of all, you don't have words for it. You don't have the like information there to put your experience into the clear words. And then on top of that, you already have this habit of constantly being proven wrong by life circumstances. Like when you think things are right, people fight you and want them to be the opposite. People say one thing, mean another. And due to being highly sensitive, as all autistic people are, because that's what autism is, you sense what is going on or what they mean, and when their words are the opposite, makes you go crazy. And as a young person, or especially as a child, you have this, they also told you the rule that adult is always right, or you assume they're older so they must know more. It makes sense, right? That's only logical. And only decades later you realize, no, they were dumb as fuck. They didn't know what they were talking about. They cared about social standing or some random unfounded social rules way more than being clear with you and, you know, giving you good information. And based on that, your whole life, you kept being perpetually confused about things. So a lot of people, they would see some of their experience reflected through like in social media, like from other autistic people, but they still would be like, I'm not sure. But this not sureness is not because they aren't autistic, but actually because they are autistic. That's why they doubt it. Because growing up autistic, existing as autistic in this environment, in this society, is highly traumatizing and demands for you to hold really tight onto your self-knowledge. And you see, if you still don't know that you're autistic, it's almost, there's nothing to hold on to, basically. Nothing to validate your experiences and nothing to end the cycle of constantly feeling like you are crazy because a thing is obvious to you and people seem to not be able to get it at all. And because there are many of them and only one of you, it feels like I must be wrong. No, it's just you're autistic, and they're what I say, holistic identified. Just like the world is like heteronormative, heteronormative, I think I see a friend, whatever, it does not matter, but yes, it's him. Just like the world is cis-normative, heteronormative, it's white supremacy over there, everything, all that. It is as well like a holistic world, or like ableism as a standard, right? So when an autistic person masking, they're trying to pretend to be holistic. It's in some instances it can make their life a little easier, but in general, if a person identifies as that, aka also, as I said before, does not accept the fact that they're autistic, they often cause a lot of harm to autistic people as well. They are coming from like the positive place. It's very clear that they are trying to be nice, but or helpful, but it isn't. It isn't, right? So an autistic person in the world of holistic identified people is gonna constantly be questioned and argued and fought about the mere fact of their existence and the mere fact of them having more like poignant insight into certain situations. stronger interest in something, etc. So that leads you to not accepting that you're autistic. If it could be you, even if it's not you, whatever, if you just tend to gaslight yourself, I just recommend in general to not gaslight yourself. If you often have those situations where you first think something or say something and then be like, I'm not sure. I don't have any kind of specific exercise about this. I feel like to me it was almost like a revelation where I've been noticing those, and at a certain point I just realized that I just want to stop doing that. So that's how it went. It was just an internal process that was kind of going on its own, but it started with my awareness of it. So maybe, you can help yourself be more free in your thought and validate yourself. Yeah, it also helps when you validate your own emotions and stuff like this. So things that are obvious to you that you cannot disprove to yourself. Like, it's okay to be sad. Only a mean person is gonna say it's not okay to be sad, because what do you mean? Emotions are subjective. So there cannot be any standard of when to have an emotion. Yet, autistic people often feel like there is. We'll talk about it in a separate video because this is getting too long. Moving on. The fourth reason, again, relates back to the previous ones. It's really hard to separate things because everything's the same thing. Entire Western way of knowledge production, the way even diagnosing processes are set up, of this myth of impartial observer. That we know it's not a thing, but white people or like, okay, white supremacy, like Western system, is built upon the idea that everybody has culture, everybody has like traditions or whatever, but we are just neutral here. Our looks are the standard of beauty, our beliefs are a standard of the thing, and of course it's also like white male perspective that is projected onto everything, onto how we study animals, onto how we study people, onto how we study plants, everything. The entire idea of science is just like all this Western inherently flawed process, that most flawed in the areas that are studying subjects as if they were objects. So basically this whole process of objectifying everything, they as well objectify people and their internal processes, which is impossible to do because it is a matter of your personal experience. But diagnosing process does not include none of that. I know I'm autistic. If I'm asking, you would never tell me. And the more I relaxed into understanding that I'm autistic, the more autistic I became. And that is a very common thing because, yeah, you just stop masking, but you don't stop all the masking at once. You just ease into it more and more and more than when you realize that everything, literally everything you hated about yourself and everything that people hated you for is you just be normal, and that's just who you are and how you are, and world just sucks. So that's why I'm saying I'm not interested in diagnosis. I am not against anybody getting one, but do, consider it carefully. Check if locally gonna be any consequences, because we understand that ableism takes lives, and just see if you actually want it, if you want a white man to tell you that yes, you are who you are, or maybe you can just give it a little time and become more confident in who you are and how you are, and come together with autistic people and, you know, take their opinions and experiences as food for thought. Don't take it as, of course, there are people who are autistic, for example. They deny that they're autistic, and then they're going to be denying that I'm autistic, because that they invalidate themselves and then invalidate me. Just look at what's available and what can help you understand what it means to be autistic, and just find things that make you feel good and make you feel not broken. That's how you know you're going in the right direction, that you become feeling more and more at ease about yourself. There can be a stage where you're really angry with everybody and everything, because that is a very surreal experience. Your brain is like, what the hell? Like, all this time it was all right, and you just made me go crazy over nothing. Again, different conversation. We keep going with the reasons why people don't accept the diagnosis. Oh, maybe it was the last reason. Maybe there's more, but I currently cannot come up with another one. And now I want to talk about why actually I would like people to get a diagnosis. And I do want to start with negative things to get them out of the way, to not end on a very negative thing. There are two very big, there's a rabbit. There are two very big negative outcomes that can happen, or that seem to be like the biggest and can cause the most concern. 1.5 of which I have experienced. So first one, burnout. When you don't understand the autistic, you think you're just living normal life. You think that everybody lives just like you live internally. Your internal experience. You think everybody is going through this, and you think that things are just hard for everybody. And people keep talking about like, oh, life is just hard, and they're like, yeah, it is hella hard. No, not as hard as you were experiencing it. No, not even close. But the reason you can also believe in that is because your parents are also autistic and they also don't know. So they kept telling you, oh, life isn't easy, because they never realized that it is way harder for them than it is supposed to be to the average person. And you saw them struggling, so it seemed obvious. It seemed very, very normal. So yeah, one outcome is a burnout. So as I told you, I completely fell into a burnout when I was 32. But that wasn't the time when I actually started burning out. At this point, I feel like maybe around 25 I did. At the latest, maybe earlier. Basically, it depends on, it just combines different environmental factors. So you have the masking, yes, and then you can have a job that is hard, or you can have a relationship that is extremely hard, or you can go to school and that is not adapted at all to your needs, the workflow, the schedule, all of this. And that can exacerbate the process, and that can make burnout become so obvious that literally you can't overcome it. There are a lot of people who are already in a burnout, but they still keep pushing. And maybe they describe it like something of, yeah, life doesn't get easier when you grow up, The older you get, the harder it gets. That's vibes that undetected burnout can give off. So burnout is one. And a lot of people, it's characterized by like a lot of skills. And not only professional skills. It could be very simple skills such as speech, or ability to take care of yourself, or ability to calculate things in your mind, or like just understand numbers. It has a variety of different outcomes, including never recovering from burnout. So basically your nervous system gets burned through and then you stay like that forever. With which I am currently trying to make peace with, because maybe that's my case. And I'm not saying it to make it, yeah. Well, I'm not trying to make it dramatic, but I am facing some internal, let's say sense of loss or something. It's not, again, it's not dramatic because it is what it is. But, and I will find a way of dealing with this. But it is something that can happen and has happened to numerous people. That's one. Another one, death, our favorite. I don't know how burnout correlates to this factor. Like if it's possible to burn out so badly that you literally die. It feels like probably it is possible, but I don't know. So I'm just talking about unaliving yourself, because you're so done with this. So one situation, yes, is when you're so burnt out and you don't know that you're burnt out, right? Like you keep trying and then you can't, and you just eventually become isolated because your energy is not enough to brush teeth, let alone to create or maintain even social connections. And social connections are really, really important for a healthy life, for feeling good. A lot of things that are really important to you just unable to maintain, and you don't get any support. And it's not like when you diagnose it, you get the support. In some places that's truth, but not everywhere. Far from everywhere. So I just want to relate this to experience I had that was pre me realizing I was autistic. That was driving me completely mad and making me extremely upset. At some point, basically, I was, my circumstances suggested that I should start spiritual self-exploration, or working on my mental health and getting better. And already as autistic person, you're really aware of things, but again, you have to have good information input in order to be processed in this genius machine to come out as something, applicable. So, what I was saying? Burnout. Right, so I started on the spiritual path and working on my mental health. And I had a lot of revelations, because especially in the beginning, it almost feels like, well, nothing gets better, but you keep discovering a lot of things, a lot of things. Or maybe it's all the same thing, but from different angles. Does not matter. You constantly feel like your mind is blown. You became free, and then you still aren't. But that is just overall experience. I know I've heard a lot of people having, regardless of autism. But in regards with autism, general trend that I had was that the better I felt mentally, the worse I felt overall. So basically, because improvements in mental health and your self-image and your self-value, they lead to you unmasking. So I started unmasking before I even found out I was masking. I already knew I had ADHD, so there was a little bit of oh yeah, I'm just accepting that this thing that I don't know, that I do it this way. But a lot of this masking my autism that I thought was just a normal personal inhibition. When I would unmask, basically I kept feeling worse and worse, and I kept kind of spiraling. I can't even recall exactly any examples. I just remember this feeling, and I remember also talking to somebody online about this, and somebody also actually making videos about this, about neurodivergent people, that the better your mental health is, the worse it is. And that is where the unalive happens. Like, I really thought very seriously about it. And also, I mean, throughout my whole life, also as an autistic person living in this world that is not for me, I thought about it a lot, but especially during this time of where I obviously experienced way more pressure than even I was accustomed to. And to say accustomed to, you just have a belief that it is normal, but of course it still takes a huge toll on you. It doesn't, you don't just get used to it, you know, like, I don't have an example because I feel like I don't get used to nothing, but yes, at the same time I do. Different conversation. So yeah, burnout and unalive are the worst outcomes that can happen from you not being able to access an information about yourself. Another one that's pretty big. It's gonna sound like shade, I understand it, but I really hope you bear with me and you, maybe it is for you, but also it's not targeted. I'm not targeting you. It's also based on my personal experience. If you know, when you know you're autistic, I feel like that can eliminate the amount of, I made small notes, let me see. Basically, that can eliminate or lower the amount of instances where you fall extremely deeply in love with a person just because they're an autistic person who's not masking. You see them, yourself in them, and immediately you think they're your soulmate. Or even worse, twin flame. And why I say worse? Again, no shade, no nothing. It just feels horrible. Horrible, that situation where you believe that somebody is for you, but they're not available, right? But especially when you're autistic, everything is more intense. All feelings are more intense. Horrible, really painful. We don't need that. It's okay if you're going through this. I'm going to tell you it's going to be okay. Have patience and love yourself. Really, really work on centering your own feelings and discovering more about yourself, including the fact that you might be autistic, and probably you are. Yeah, I had this, yeah, I'm literally just telling you about myself. I was so crazy in love with a person that now I'm obviously we didn't end up together. So obviously, because I'm not mentioning them in the present time. And I would completely be fine right now if I met them or whatever. Like, I really don't, I see that the overwhelming sense of familiarity that I felt towards them, that many people describe as, we were together in the previous lives. That's just literally them being more openly autistic than I was at the moment. I was really stuffed, and I really saw myself in them so much. And yeah, in general, I'll keep like looking at it and thinking about it. Maybe I'll talk about it in a separate video, but I do believe that majority of people who are so intensely into this belief about soulmates and twin flames, they're just autistic. And most of them already openly claiming being HSPs, which is autistic. That makes total sense. So again, I'm no shade, no nothing. I love you. I love all people. So, and I just felt this lack and this feeling of, I am not this, I wish I was this, kind of. But that is at the core of traditional coupling in this world. But then when you heal, it becomes way better. I promise you. That, and the less intense one, but I think the most important one, well, it's not more important than not dying, but it is just having a good quality of life. I do know somebody who is like super autistic, and does not identify as such, maybe not even one person, but who has very good support in place and has built their life very well, and I guess they don't need this name, you know, and that's valid, that's okay. I just want you to have a good life. I want you to be proud of who you are. I want you to be able to use your fantastic pre-installed qualities, traits, talents, and abilities, like your heightened sense of justice and all of those things. And a lot of these things as well, I will talk more about it. There's so much to talk about, like a million things. But I want you to be able to recognize certain things and places where, like, you are maybe not fair to yourself, that identifying as normal where it prevents you from self-compassion. Because being autistic is not normal at all in this society. Other societies could be completely different story. But where we live right now, here in this world that's centered around this and that and that. And of course, you might be like watching from a different country and it's different than you. I'm really happy that in my country, I was not diagnosed as a child, that's for sure. Like, I got hella traumatized, but if I was diagnosed as a child, probably wouldn't be speaking to you right now, sitting here. So there is a time and place for everything, but I really, really strongly believe that people should have information about who they are, and what they say, representation matters. That's the best and most important way to receive information through about yourself, through seeing people expressing themselves as who they are and being able to relate to them. And I completely get that. Like, for me, I cannot overstate the importance of this, because growing up gay, trans, and autistic and not knowing that I was either of those, there was some kind of like, I should be accepted, you know? But you cannot make them accept you. And it almost kind of translates back into you not accepting yourself in return. It feels like maybe they should accept you first. Different conversation, but that is a very important topic. And another one that is more broad is you're gonna be nicer to other people. Internalized ableism is a bitch, and your denial of being autistic projected onto other people who are autistic as well is a bitch. Like, don't do it. Just accept yourself for other people's sake. And again, the choice is like, you can be a negative influence, you can be neutral, right? Not disturb anything, and you can also offer the knowledge. You can offer an advice further along the way. And we can keep contributing to this beautiful, fantastic, I don't want to say community, but let's say we call community, but not of course you don't have to be friends with all autistic people. I'm sure there are horrible people who are autistic, or like somebody who you don't want to, I mean, I personally don't believe that people could be horrible. I can't believe only in horrible behaviors. That's so autistic of me. But just, you know, it's like you're just walking around and like, you know, you see a person and you're like, I see you, you know, and you feel so good. And maybe you even have a small conversation. But try not to have small conversations, because a lot of autistic people don't know how to stop a conversation, because they're trying to be nice to each other and everybody. Some cannot start a conversation. Sometimes it's the same person in two different situations. This is all. I hope you watched it in double speed. I hope you did. I'm gonna try to cut things out, and I'm gonna try to talk more about different parts of this further. At least now this is documented, and I can just feel like I've been heard today, that I brought some usefulness. That's not a good word. Like, I just want to share. I really want people to feel like they're not alone. That is so important to me. And then when I help you and you say that I did, it makes me so happy. Okay. I am so sorry it's so long. I'm so sorry. Well, maybe I shouldn't be sorry. Because you're a free being in a free world. You don't have to watch this. I will think about it later, okay?